hallucinogen, as opposed to an organic one, if you will, or a botanical one. LSD is a very interesting chemical, especially in the history of things in the United States and in Australia, because of an individual by the name of Owsley, who was one of the first producers of LSD, albeit with CIA support and stuff. The fellow and his work got out of their hands very rapidly. So, and there is some stuff about pure forms of LSD-25 that actually make it a don't make it a very good tool for the powers that be, and that's why they went on to have ecstasy produced and use that to direct people away from what you can actually learn with acid. It's not as good as ayahuasca, from what I hear. I've never taken ayahuasca, never been in a position to do so. However, I've had experience with the organics in the form of mescaline, psilocybe cubensis, and some others. So I've been on that shamanic trail, and I know that ayahuasca was the seventh of the great herbal teachers, and the sixth, and the seventh is Salvia divinorum, and it is shocking to me to see how that is being used by our society now, because that's a seriously powerful drug, and I don't know if it is I have yet to make a conclusion as to whether its resurgence is due to being prompted by the powers that be, or whether its resurgence is being prompted by universe as a counter to that. George gets really irritated at me all the time because I have this viewpoint of duality that is all-encompassing. And in other words, I see that, the powers that be are attempting to do this, this mechanism of control, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter what you use as an example. And then I come back to it and think, because they did that, universe is going to counter with this over here, or something out of left field that will take this away. And I've never been disappointed. Sure enough, usually you'll see something sprout up. So in other words, we had, specific kinds of disruptions we had a natural outgrowth that was taking place in our society due to generational issues in the baby boomers. And those generational issues would have led to a massive level of a rebellion, but the powers that be decided that they were going to short circuit that social rebellion that Libya now faces by the introduction of vast quantities of hallucinogens and other drugs into the society at the same time that they unleashed the rock and roll energies on everybody, and they diverted the whole revolution away from a physical confrontation that would have led to a civil war into where we are now. But in a weird way, they have brought on the awakening movement because they directed so many of us into what they thought was a energy-expending, harmless enclave cul-de-sac of hallucinogenic drugs and theogens. But we turned it around. Universe brought it all the way back around, and here we are now acting, those of us that have come through that process, as the very spark for what will turn out to be a planetary revolution, instead of fulfilling our destiny, perhaps, back in the 60s in a national revolution.
I completely understand what you're saying. One of the things I brought back from a smoke DMT experience was these beings or entities, whatever you want to call them, the same things that Terrence McKenna basically described in that clip. They were showing,
the elementals.
Yes,
yeah.
They were showing just these objects and everything, and they said, look how everything works together. Do you see? This is the way the universe works. It all works together.
Sure, it's all harmoniously based on an energetic principle, and it all kind of it's elegant. It's just gorgeous. The design patterns are truly phenomenal within universe at any level you care to look at, because it's all fractally interrelated. And I know what you're talking about relative to the elementals. They actually, I think that's one of their jobs, one of their functions within the experience, is to, and that's why I call them elementals, is they point out the operational elements involved in the system that we call life.
Very interesting. Another thing that I brought out from an experience was I was speaking to this plant teacher. That's the only thing that I can describe it as. And I asked him, why did you pick me? What am I supposed to do? Why am I here explaining this message to people, etc. And it says, you're supposed to save the universe. And I said, that's ridiculous. I can't save the universe. No. The universe that's inside of you. That's all you're responsible for, is the universe within you. So I thought that was pretty profound, yeah.
And you chose it yourself to do that. Anyway, universe didn't choose you. You chose to participate at that level. The universe is really complex, and it's much more organized than I would have given it credit for, and it's certainly much more organized and interrelated than the material world in academia would have you understand. So the issue of discussing things with plant intelligences or discussing things with the elementals. Also, by the way, the elementals appear to have another function that I'm aware of, which is not only to an operational manual to tell you how things work, but they're also guides and gatekeepers. I've actually had experiences, including meditative experiences, where I've encountered the elementals and I've wanted to go somewhere within that space, if you will, and they said, well, you'd better not. And in the one instance, I went ahead and did it anyway and regretted it. And so they don't prevent you from doing things, but after a while you wise up and learn to listen to them.
Whenever I had my ayahuasca experience, I saw the elves, and I didn't even hear any of Terence McKenna's work until after the fact, and it was exactly like that Terence McKenna said it was. There were these elves, and they told me it all works together. See, it all works together. And I realized, yeah, the universe is interrelated, everything is connected, everything relies on everything else for its own existence, and that I have to embrace that.
Sure, it has to be that way, too, when you think about it at an abstract level. If as I maintain, well, we see some truths in everything, okay? Universe talks to us continuously. So even though, in my estimation, the Bible per se is this tool of control, they had to put in stuff in there that at one level metaphorically is accurate. And so you start looking at all these various religious control, the dogma, the various sacred books and so on, and if you go through and look at it in a linguistic fashion, you find that curiously they reference some of the same what I call archetypes in terms of the discussion. And you needn't get involved with the personality aspect of it all just to be able to see some really elegant interplay of universe, because universe is telling even people that are controlled by mind-controlling religions, they have the truth in front of them, because it starts off basically attempting in all of these books to describe why we find ourselves in the dualistic universe we're in. But the dualistic universe we're in makes a lot of sense, because if we start off with a single vibration, a single sound, or a single word as the creation of the material in here, then how would one go about creating a material universe? If one wanted to postulate that we wanted to end up where we're at now, and we're consciousness way back when, then consciousness might decide, oh, what I'm going to do is to create a virtual space, and then to put in a single vibration within that space, but bind that vibration to the space the way that one might bind a ripple inside a pond so it can't escape and go out. And once one does that, what happens? Well, the ripple is forced back in on it, starts colliding with itself again and again and again and again and again in an infinite thing that continues to always progress towards complexity. So you start off with a very simple thing, the initial sound, the Om in the Brahmin or the Atman in Egyptian, the very simple word that then goes off to become a vibration in this enclosed space that ripples upon itself so many thousands and thousands and trillions of times that it creates a level of complexity that tricks our mind into thinking we're actually in a material world.
What would you say about the phenomena that I've experienced, and I don't know if you've experienced it or others have, but I know I have. Even when I was 15, 16 years old, taking X and LSD, with the person that I'm connected with, especially with Cherie, whenever we take ayahuasca or anything like that together, we seem to have the same experiences, go to the same places, etc. Would that be
Well,
because
it makes sense. Look, you're in an energetic world. You are not a material being. Your brain thinks that you're material, but you're really sitting there vibrating at this particular frequency. You have found a being that is next to you that vibrates at a frequency where that being's, if you're lucky, most of the depressions in your sine wave are filled with the ascensions in her sine wave, so that you complement each other. It thus makes sense that if you alter your fundamental frequency, you get that, quote, contact high by expressing out that vibration towards her. If she's also taking a chemical that makes her sensitive to your vibration and vice versa, then it just makes absolute, rock solid, so to speak, sense that your vibrational frequencies are in sync in a resonant. And look at all the words we use, the vibes and so on, and you're in the same plane of resonance and all of this. So it's perfectly logical. And this is how telepathy works. And one of the things you read, if you get into serious exploration of it, you go in and you read the Science of Study, the Fifth Bushel League's writings from the Taoists, you read that they actually had techniques for applying that same principle to beings other than humans. Now, they're not talking aliens. They're talking about birds or, cattle or alligators, being able to understand their thoughts the same way that you can understand sympathetic humans' thoughts with whom you're sharing that experience. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense, dude. Been there.
Okay.
And now I know why, yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Very cool.
Do you think that entheogens have a place for us in our conscious evolution, or is it something that we should veer away from? I guess why I'm asking is because we have conversations like this a lot on this broadcast. We've had Dennis McKenna, Rick Strassman, Edie Frexka, even Joe Rogan speaking about this stuff on the broadcast. But it makes me a little bit, I'm kind of split down the middle, because on one hand, this information isn't for everybody. But on the other hand, it's our job to put this information out, isn't it?
I don't know about the job component to it. Yes, you need to be able to respond effectively and honestly when people ask, and if that's the way you're moved by universe, then that's certainly the way to go. However, and so yes, we need to state that. I think you can absolve yourself of the karmic tendency towards guilt feelings you've got, because nothing you say will convince an unready mind to begin an entheogenic journey when they should not. They may not be ready, but it is their own free will and the vibrations within their body that allow them to reach that conclusion to go ahead and take that particular ayahuasca trip or, eat that mushroom. You may have contributed in some small way, but there's nothing in your words that actually make that human vibrate in such a way to get off their butt and actually go and do it. So the fact that they took the action, the karmic on them, your responsibility to universe is to harmonize and state out what universe obviously is prompting you to do so, and your job is karmically clean at that level. So I think you can absolve yourself of any dualistic feelings in that regard, but we always need, and I used to work suicide prevention lines when I was a kid, and bad trip lines and all of this kind of stuff, and so I've had a lot of experience talking people out of bad acid trips and all different kinds of weird drugs.
Oh wow.
And maybe several thousand, because I did it for easily 6-8 months solid, and then for the better part of a year. In any event, though, the whole point of this is that those people that will take it and suffer ill effects, the ill effects that they're going to take are something that they brought on as part of that experience. And a lot of it has to do with their karmic load that they bring in. I'm talking very hugely personal responsibility here. So if I stand on up and I say, I took this drug, I had these experiences, and because I took this drug and I know how powerful it is, I can state that it's probably not for everybody, and if you're hesitant about it, don't ever take it if you're hesitant about it. But if you're sure